It's wild to think about, but imagine a single act of, well, petty greed, just completely triggering the total annihilation of an empire. In this explainer, we're diving into a crazy, pivotal window in history, right around 1219 to 1221, where the massive Khwarazmian dynasty was literally erased from the map by Genghis Khan. We're talking about a story of incredible hubris, devastating consequences, and a military campaign so thorough it actually changed the entire ecology and demographics of Central Asia.
So how did a simple trade dispute erase a massive empire? We usually think these world-altering wars are the result of decades of complex geopolitical friction, right? But as you'll see today, sometimes a localized dispute, a single miscalculation by a really arrogant leader, can create this massive butterfly effect that reshapes world history forever.
All right, Section 1, a clash of two powers. To really grasp the sheer scale of this disaster, we need to set the stage right before the whole thing explodes.
Back in 1218, we've got two absolute heavyweights about to collide. On one side, the Khwarazmian Empire. At its peak, this was a massive Sunni Muslim empire controlling Persia, Transoxiana, and Afghanistan, led by Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad II. Now, there's a pretty fascinating irony with the Shah's dynasty. It actually had Turkic Mamluk or slave soldier origins, even though it had become heavily Persianized over time. On the flip side, we have the newly unified Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan had just united the nomadic tribes in 1206 and was rapidly swallowing up the steppe. And here is the fatal irony for you. This Khwarazmian dynasty, founded by steppe nomads who rose to power through military prowess, was about to face a force that had absolutely perfected that exact same type of warfare.
500. Just picture 500 camels. That's the size of the caravan Genghis Khan sent over in 1218. And the crazy thing? This wasn't an invasion force at all. It was a massive olive branch. Genghis actually saw the Khwarazmian Empire as a vital trade partner and maybe even a military ally against the Abbasid Caliphate. This caravan was just loaded with Mongol, Muslim, and Chinese luxury goods. It was literally an invitation for lucrative, peaceful coexistence, the ultimate geopolitical olive branch.
Moving into Section 2, the fatal Mongol betrayal. Let's look at the sheer, mind-boggling hubris that would ultimately doom millions of people.
So the disaster kicks off when this caravan arrives in the city of Otrar. The local governor, a guy named Inalchuk, who conveniently happened to be the maternal uncle of the Shah, arbitrarily accuses these merchants of being spies. Driven by purely petty greed and without even waiting for the Shah's orders, he just massacres all 450 merchants and seizes the goods. Now, Genghis Khan, surprisingly, kind of restrained himself at first. He sent 3 ambassadors to the Shah demanding justice and asking for Inalchuk to be handed over. But here is the point of no return. Shah Muhammad doesn't just refuse, he executes the lead Muslim ambassador and publicly shaves the beards of the 2 Mongol escorts. In this culture, shaving an envoy's beard was a devastating, deeply personal, and frankly fatal insult. An entire apocalypse literally triggered over stolen goods and shaved beards.
When those 2 shaved escorts finally made it back to Genghis Khan, historical accounts tell us the Khan went up onto a mountain completely alone. He wept and he prayed to the sky for vengeance, and he uttered these exact words: "The Shah has cut the rope of peace and broken the pact." That right there, that's the dramatic punctuation mark. Diplomacy was officially dead and the War of Annihilation had begun.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Khan's brutal wrath. The Mongol war machine is now fully mobilized, and it is moving with absolutely terrifying speed.
Now, you might assume the Mongols rolled in with overwhelming numbers, but it was actually a David versus Goliath scenario, just in reverse. The Mongol army had roughly 75,000 to 100,000 troops, while the Khwarazmian army was massive, boasting around 400,000 troops. But the Shah made a fatal tactical error. Terrified of facing the highly mobile Mongols in a pitched open-field battle, he spread his massive forces out, hiding them inside his major cities. He was hoping to stall the Mongols out with sieges, but instead, he basically handed Genghis the perfect opportunity to defeat a much larger army piecemeal, just completely dismantling them city by city.
And the destruction was utterly ruthless. At Otrar, the site of that original betrayal, the Mongols besieged the city for 5 months. When they finally broke through, Governor Inalchuk was captured, and the Mongols poured molten silver into his eyes and ears, a gruesome, poetic punishment for his greed, and the city was entirely razed. Then came Bukhara, known as the Noble City. Even though it surrendered, the defenders were executed. Civilians were forced to march as human shields in front of the Mongol siege engines, and the whole place was burned to the ground. Next up, Samarkand. The city's own Turkic garrison actually tried to switch sides, betraying the city to the Mongols, hoping they'd be spared. The Mongols accepted their surrender and then executed all 30,000 of them anyway, right alongside 50,000 slaughtered civilians. What we're looking at here are tactics that today we would absolutely define as horrific war crimes. And the sheer scale of engineering behind this wrath? Staggering. 3,000. That is the number of catapults the Mongols deployed at the capital city of Urgench. It was by far their most brutal siege. When the city resisted, the Mongols didn't just break the walls down, they literally dragged the nearby river, diverting its course to completely flood the city. Over 100,000 people were killed in Urgench alone, while slaves were forced to dig through the flooded rubble looking for loot. Just wild. Section 4. The Fall of the Shah. As his cities burned to the ground, the Khwarazmian royal family suffered a truly pathetic collapse. This collapse happened with breathtaking speed. In 1219, the major cities start falling like dominoes. By 2020, Shah Muhammad, the very man whose arrogance started all of this, didn't even stay to fight. He abandoned his armies and fled across Persia like a fugitive. His own generals deserted him. He eventually died of pleurisy, hiding out on a desolate little island in the Caspian Sea, sheltering with a local peasant. Now contrast that pathetic end with what happened in 1221, where his heroic son, Jalal ad-Din, made a genuinely brave final stand against the Mongols at the Battle of the Indus River. And that battle at the Indus River? It gave us one of history's most cinematic escapes. Completely surrounded and facing certain death, Jalal ad-Din spurred his horse and made a massive 50-foot leap off a cliff directly into the raging waters below. Genghis Khan was actually watching from the riverbank. He was so impressed by this act of sheer bravery that he ordered his archers to lower their bows and forbade his soldiers from shooting him. So Jalal ad-Din survived the day, though his empire was utterly gone. Section 5. A Scorched Earth Legacy. The empire was destroyed, the Shah was dead. But what was the true, lasting cost of all this hubris? The demographic and environmental collapse is honestly hard to fathom. Central Asia's population was so utterly decimated that it didn't recover to pre-invasion levels for 150 years. The Mongols systematically destroyed the Khanate underground irrigation systems, which were these absolute marvels of ancient engineering, effectively turning thriving farmland permanently into desert. And there's a pretty grim irony here, too. Those betrayers, Inalchuk and the Turkic garrison at Samarkand, they thought they could play the game, but they were slaughtered anyway. As for our hero Jalaluddin, he spent his remaining years as a fugitive and died in 1231. Ironically, he was assassinated by a Kurdish killer, not even by a Mongol. Today, his tomb in Turkey simply reads, "The last Sultan of the Khwarazmian Empire." The trauma of this event echoed across the medieval world. The contemporary Arab historian Ibn al-Athir wrote, and I quote, "For several years I refrained from mentioning this event, deeming it so horrible, so terrible that approach of the Day of Judgment seemed preferable." Just let the gravity of that sink in for a second. The total annihilation was so absolute that historians writing about it literally thought the world was ending. The dark legacy of this conflict really cannot be overstated. The Khwarazmian Empire was the first great Turkic power Genghis Khan erased from the map, but it set an unyielding, terrifying template for every single Mongol campaign that followed. The new rules demand immediate surrender, punish any form of treachery with total scorched earth annihilation, and always turn the enemy's own internal divisions into your absolute sharpest weapon. So it really makes you wonder if Governor Inalchuk hadn't been so greedy. If Shah Muhammad hadn't shaved those ambassadors' beards, if they had just simply accepted that 500-camel caravan of peace and traded with Genghis Khan, how fundamentally different would the map of the modern world look today? Millions of lives, centuries of ecological development, and the fate of entire civilizations all hinged on one horrific diplomatic mistake. Thanks for exploring this massive turning point with me on this explainer, and remember to always question the fragile threads of history.